Hey everyone, Michael here with the Bitcoin Way podcast. Thank you for joining us today. On the show, we've got Handre van Heerden. He is the founder of AirBTC, an Airbnb-like company, but they are Bitcoin only. They only accept Bitcoin as payment. They have a growing number of listings on their website and are doing some amazing things. Really hope you enjoy the show. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Handre. Alrighty, like I said in the introduction, I've got Handre here. Handre, welcome to the Bitcoin Way podcast.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. I think you guys are doing some cool things. Let's just jump right into the good stuff. Can you explain AirBTC, what it is, what you're working on, for anyone who's unfamiliar?
So AirBTC is a dream of mine of starting a company that is Bitcoin only, that does not have a fiat bank account. And in today's society, with the little adoption of Bitcoin that we have at the moment, that's very difficult. So I came up with this idea of AirBTC, which is like Airbnb, but we just focus on Bitcoin payments. So we can only users can only pay in Bitcoin, and hosts can only accept Bitcoin as payment as well. So we're like 100% Bitcoin only company. We don't have a fiat bank account, like I said. We only use Bitcoin on chain and Lightning. No fiat, no shitcoins, and yeah. So that's basically the concept. So by doing this, we have certain advantages and certain disadvantages because, the Bitcoin community really likes this concept, but they are geographically spread very thin across the world. So even though we are getting lots of listings, the chances that we have a listing in a place that you want to stay at still low, but it's increasing every single day, and hopefully we'll have many listings like by the end of the year, and yeah, that's basically it.
I love it. And we're Bitcoin only too here at the Bitcoin Way. We like to say no fiat rails. You got to pay us in Bitcoin. Besides being Bitcoin only, would you draw any distinction or differentiation between you and Airbnb? Or is your vision more or less to replicate this model that's proven for them successful and just use better monetary rails in doing so?
We have had many requests for different types of listings, like boats and hotels, and like it's something of everything. So we're not denying those. If we are able to accommodate someone that wants to put some form of listing on Airbnb, AirBTC, we are accommodating them. So at this stage, we're small enough to 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 handle every request basically as it comes in. So we do have hotels, we do have campsites, we have a couple of yachts, and yeah. So it's basically the same as Airbnb.
Yeah, but I guess as a smaller company, the ability to handle more requests and probably at this stage less scrutiny. You have some accommodations that you can probably take on. Yachts is a very cool one
Yeah.
that I imagine will sort of be a distinct feature for you guys as you go. Do you?
I think
Yeah, yeah.
to be able to rent out a couple of these yachts on the site when Bitcoin reaches 100K for a party.
Dude, that is so cool. Do you have outside investors? Could you talk a little bit about the team that you've built? I mean, it sounds like you run fairly lean.
Yeah, so I basically I started the project out of my living room, and we're up to 5 team members right now. We haven't had outside funding yet, but we have two people just working on with the users, uploading listings and handling the bookings, and then we have a programmer, and we have myself, and we have a person our head of business development, who's also a partner in the business. His name is Jacob Seifert, lives in Orlando, Florida.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. You know what? I think there's people take for granted. Obviously there are challenges with coming that you're going to have with a team of 5 people versus, a massive team of developers and people taking on listings. But I think people underestimate the speed at which you can make decisions and add new features. Maybe not technically there's a hurdle there, but you can make a determination that this is a route we're going to go. And the bureaucracy at a bigger company trying to achieve that same thing gets in the way, and the innovation slows. So yeah, I actually was looking at maybe heading down to El Salvador at some point. I saw you've got some listings there, and you're right, like it's a relatively small number of listings now, but I think as more people become aware of it, and hopefully this podcast and others that you've gone on can help you spread the word, because I suspect there are a lot of people out there that would love some other form of passive Bitcoin income that just don't work in the space, that they don't know how to do it. And to me, this seems like a very obvious step for them. So let's take a quick step back here. You said this was a dream of yours. How did you get into Bitcoin in the first place, and what prompted you to start this business specifically?
So I saw you had Seiferin on. I come from I come through his mentorship. I also want to say I joined the Seiferin Academy, and I did all his courses, and um, in about 2021, and his second course, the Principles of Austrian Economics 2. When I finished that course, it dawned on me that Bitcoin is definitely the future, and if we don't, as a human society, basically create a separate economy that runs on Bitcoin next to the fiat economy, we're going to be in trouble potentially within the next 15 to 20 years. Um, and I have I have a son that's 2 years old now, and so my idea is from those days, I didn't want to I don't want Bitcoin to fuse and be intertwined by the fiat economy. I want it separate. Because when the fiat economy eventually fails, and there's a lot of bad stuff that comes with it, regulation, and it's just getting worse. It's not only the money printing. If you can speak to anyone in, not even only in the financial industry, but especially in the financial industry, but in any industry, if you compare the amount of red tape and regulation 5 years ago to today, and you compare 10 years ago to 5 years ago, it's increasing. Like it's almost impossible to do business in the legacy fiat economy at this stage, because you're just basically um, um, spending your whole day to comply. uh, and so I don't want that economy, and then um, but we're just using Bitcoin. I want something completely new. It's something completely fresh. The forest needs to burn and the new grass needs to come up. So that's why I wanted to start something completely separate from the fiat economy, and that's only on Bitcoin. So that was the first point that I realized. The second one is capital allocation. So um, because different fiat currencies in different jurisdictions, and especially with the US dollar and the Federal Reserve being like the kingpin basically of all the Federal Reserves, capital allocation doesn't go to where in the world where it is able to be allocated the best and most effectively and cheaply. It goes to where it's able to be uh, uh, used most effectively within whatever jurisdiction, and that causes like severe imbalances where people in India and South Africa and more third world countries can do the same work as people in first world countries for, I mean, like a tenth of the payment of the amount of fees. And I think that Bitcoin like has it's going to play a huge role in cutting that off, and capital will flow to wherever it can be allocated the best. I think that's one of our strengths, I want to say, because we at AirBTC we have a largely South African based expenses with people working here, and we have income in Bitcoin from all over the world. So already we have the potential of operating at at a much lower cost if the way we're operating now than if we were to say to be in New York or in Zurich or wherever, because the people that are working for us, because of fiat currency debasement of their currency through the 50 years, um, can do the same work for less amount of money.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
I, I got two questions for you then. So one of them is, so you mentioned taking one of Saifedean's courses. Were you already studying Bitcoin leading up to that, or how did you get tied into Safe? It sounds like that he was kind of like your maybe your orange pill moment, but most people don't just normies aren't stumbling across Saifedean and his work. It's usually a Bitcoin sort of intro to his world.
Yeah, so well, actually, I started my Bitcoin life, if I want to call it that, by there's a huge arbitrage opportunity in South Africa, like between 2018 and 2021. A lot of people made money with that. So basically, because South Africa has capital controls, the price of Bitcoin is just like it was between 3 and 8% higher than in the rest of the world. So if you are able to take money outside, you can just buy Bitcoin, send it to South Africa, and sell it for a profit immediately. It's like it average at like 5%. So I started just doing that. So I didn't know, or I wasn't interested in Bitcoin at that stage. But eventually, when I made some money with that, I decided, no, let me check out what this Bitcoin thing is. And I went to the bookshop, and the only book about Bitcoin that there was the Bitcoin Standard. And when I read that, it was the first time in my life that I heard about something like Austrian economics. Even though I've been in the business world my entire life, in South Africa, it's so fringe. No one has basically ever heard about it. So um, I think up until today, in my entire real world life in South Africa, I've only met one guy ever who um, um, he knew who Hayek was. Um, except for him, if I say the word Austrian economics in this country, the people they think it's why am I studying the or interested in the economic history of Austria? um, but anyway, so when I read the Bitcoin Standard, I became infatuated with it, and I immediately subscribed to Saifedean's courses, and I eventually ended up helping him, and I created the exam questions for one of his courses on Sailor Academy. Um, and
That's cool.
yeah, so I've been a member of the of Saifedean's community or inner circle or whatever you want to call it for quite a while, and it's been quite a journey. I've learned a lot from him. I've learned also to a lot of the things that he comes up with the first time he said it. You're like, huh? And then it always gets proven true. You just wait long enough.
That's right, man. Yeah, the Bitcoiners eventually they have their moment of vengeance when things all the crypto scams collapse. And yeah, that was honestly for me, that was a big part of my orange pill journey. Was I was learning about Bitcoin sort of alongside this other stuff, and I'd hear Bitcoiners talking, and then Celsius went down, and then FTX collapsed, and it was like, oh, like maybe these guys are onto something. They know something that I don't, and I haven't figured out yet. And I can completely relate. The other thing you mentioned was, building something completely outside of the system, and obviously there are regulatory implications of working within traditional finance. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because there seem to be different schools of thoughts on this. Like the ETFs coming online is big news. Options are coming. Large bank here, BNY Mellon, is being approved to custody Bitcoin, and there's sort of like the camp of this is good for Bitcoin. It was inevitable anyway. This is going to increase Bitcoin adoption on Wall Street. And then there are some people who, and and things like presidential candidates in the U.S. talking about Bitcoin and coming to the Bitcoin conference. And then there are other people who say, no, like this isn't good for Bitcoin. Yes, maybe it was inevitable as Bitcoin's fiat exchange rate climbs, but we don't want this. Do you like fall on one side or the other in general?
Not really, but I do have opinion about that. So I think that the institutional adoption is going to be very good for the price. So I mean, for Bitcoin's price to run up to 250k or even 500k, the amount of inflows needed is insane. So um, um, Bitcoin definitely needs that to be able to rise in price. I think no matter how a hardcore Bitcoiner you are hoping for that. Um, but the people buying that, the people whose Bitcoin is going to be custodied in through ETF on Coinbase or at a bank, they don't really have Bitcoin. So the chances that they're going to get rugged in the next 25 years is large, because um, and they did that with gold in the 1930s. Well, why wouldn't they do that with Bitcoin? When the system collapses, they're gonna the banks and government are going to take that. When the large institutions, they're going to take that Bitcoins. I highly doubt that they are aware that they will not be able to create or get more. I mean, now the banks have custody, they're probably going to fractional reserve it. It's probably not going to be long. People are definitely going to try that. And when there's a bank run, there isn't going to they won't be able to print some more Bitcoin to pay those people. They'll have to find the Bitcoin somewhere, or default. And I think we're going to see that in the future. I think you think it's easy now. It's easier to buy an ETF, or it's easier to custody on Coinbase, or it's easier to keep your Bitcoin on the NY Mail Bank. But you're going to pay the price down the line when you realize that you don't have Bitcoin anymore because you didn't go through the effort to self custody.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think that's the hard thing is I think the mindset of these banks and these large institutions hasn't shifted at all. They just see an opportunity for further revenue generation, offering new service offerings, that kind of thing. But I would be absolutely shocked if the significance of a perfectly scarce asset is going to register with them in any short-term scenario. And so that's my concern, is that they're going to rehypothecate funds, lend, whatever, and yeah, there's going to be a bank run. I mean, there will be at some point, whether it's in the next couple of years or a couple of decades from now, it doesn't really matter. And my concern is that the way that they're going to make these people whole is by printing fiat and saying, well, we'll give you the fiat equivalent of whatever you had in Bitcoin. But all of the benefits of self-sovereignty and freedom that Bitcoin provides people, it's gone. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because it was all just a bunch of paper Bitcoin that they thought they had, or maybe they used to have at one point in time, and then they sent to a bank, and you're just trusting the wrong institutions. And frankly, that's why we do what we do at the Bitcoin way: 100% self custody, zero counterparty risk. Don't trust anyone because you don't have to, and you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, go on.
Yeah. I mean, what you're doing is, I think it's very important. I mean, making it easy for people to self custody. I know how hard it is. It took me also quite a while. I I was a hardcore Bitcoiner for a year before I started to self custody my own coins in a hardware wallet. So I mean, it's hard to expect someone like my mother to do that. um, so I mean, definitely people like you, I think you play a huge role in helping. I mean, not only the fees that you generate from your service, but I think the service that you're giving to people, I don't think they realize when they pay for it what they're actually paying for and how important it is.
Yeah, I think you're probably right for a lot of people. It's it's a new set of skills. It's a new paradigm and a way of thinking about money and savings, and I think a lot of people move towards self custody for good self interested concerns, that like, I know I can't keep my coins on an exchange. I see the drawbacks of like a collaborative custody arrangement or what have you, but we've yet. I think a lot of people have yet to experience the freedom benefits of Bitcoin, especially people earlier on their journey who maybe have a smaller stack, and any price appreciation or anything hasn't like freed them. They're still going to the fiat mines every day and working. But I think that will become more and more evident over time. So I'm curious. You talked a little bit about this, but what was it that led you? Because there are a lot of companies, like we accept Bitcoin only. You can't pay us in fiat. There are a lot of companies. Well, first of all, there are a lot of Bitcoin companies who only accept fiat. And then there are a lot of companies who you can pay either. And I think there's some value to that. Like I understand that not everyone's prepared to pay in Bitcoin, but they're buying this or that service, or maybe they just want to buy some merch, from a Bitcoin, and like they don't have the stack to start paying in Bitcoin or whatever. And so I see utility, but you made a very principled decision here that we are accepting Bitcoin only, no fiat rails, much the way we did. What what led you to that determination, and what have been the benefits and the challenges of making that decision?
Yeah. So I mean, the benefits of this is I think the same with you is we have a large client base who really likes this concept of Bitcoin only, who's also they're trying to be Bitcoin only. They've been waiting for Bitcoin only companies to launch, and I think we're delivering on that idea. And the feedback and the reaction from the Bitcoin community in general has been exceptional. It's been really good. Thank you to everyone who's been sharing and listing and talking about AirBTC. It and then the problem is that we're only focusing on this small group of Bitcoiners, and someone with fiat is 98% of the population probably um, can't or won't use us at this stage. But I think that that percentage will slowly and steadily climb over the next couple of years, especially if there's a large-ish crisis or war or something like that. I think that will funnel more people into Bitcoin. And then, but obviously, I mean, if we were to work in fiat and we wanted to launch across the world, that would be impossible. We would have to have some kind of presence in every country that you're operating. Um, I mean, never mind certain countries who have like vast restrictions, like Cuba, or sanctions or whatever. So we have quite a few listings in Cuba actually. So I mean, anyone in the world can list. Anyone in the world can work as long as you have internet connection and you're able to pay and a Bitcoin wallet. So, I mean, I think that's a huge advantage. I mean, it's a massive advantage. It's, if you, I mean, sometimes it blows my mind when I speak to normal people on the street, people that I met in my town. And I tell them that, they're like, "Oh yes." I'm like, do you realize how insanely huge that is? That this technology already exists. you you're just not using it, and it's really easy to use. I mean, you can download a Lightning wallet within a couple of seconds and start receiving payments. If you had to pay someone in Cuba through the fiat system, that I mean, it's close to impossible. It'll be like a 10% fee, of the total amount. It'll take you 2 weeks to get the necessary banking channels open. Um, Yet you can do it right now. The technology already exists. You just have to use it. I think more and more people will start waking up to that soon.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. One of the risks. So it's interesting. So I live in a in the U.S., St. Louis, middle of the country, and I live in an area that is generally a more conservative, small government kind of area. Um, but interestingly, our mayor here sort of unilaterally made a determination: no more short term rentals. And so I had been looking at getting into real estate, like home rentals, that kind of thing, once upon a time, before I found out that I could just buy Bitcoin and I didn't have to fix a toilet in the middle of the night that wasn't working or something like that. And so there's like sort of jurisdictional exposure. Are are you finding that there are certain places that it's much safer? Like I would imagine a place like El Salvador, um, they're not going to shut down short term rentals. First of all, because it's becoming now a destination for people, especially Bitcoiners, to come. They services like yours entice people to spend Bitcoin and Bitcoiners to come to the country and use your service and then go to Bitcoin Beach and do all that. Are there places where you found it like more challenging, where the the restrictions or the regulatory environment just makes it really hard to crack through and get people renting properties?
Well, at this stage, I mean, I'm not really able to answer that. I really don't know. But well, like a year from now, I think I'll have a lot to say about that specifically. But for now, we do have people who emailed me and said exactly like you that for some ridiculous reason the authorities that in their area have disallowed them to rent out their own private property, and they also they can list on Airbnb, and I said yes. So that authority can go and stop him, but I mean they can't do anything to me. So some local government in a foreign country can't stop me from having someone have an account on my website. So yeah, I mean I heard that they cracked down quite badly on on Airbnb in the US with some of that kind of regulation, and Airbnb kind of stops it from their side. At this stage, we are allowing stuff like that. So, the, but we that being said, I'm not a lot. I mean that isn't our main focus or where we get a lot of our clients from, and I'm trying to stay as far as ignorant of those things, and that's between whoever lists and their respective authoritarian ruler.
Hey there, just a quick break and we'll get right back to the show. Wanted to encourage you to go to thebitcoinway.com/podcast where you can schedule a free 30-minute consult with a member of our team. We would love to talk you through how we help our clients take 100% proper self-custody of their Bitcoin. We also help with protecting your online life. We can help you set up privacy phones. We even have a Plan B residency to citizenship option. So we are able to meet all of your self-sovereignty needs. Again, go to thebitcoinway.com/podcast to schedule a time and learn more. I feel like probably one of the hardest things with a business like this is like generating that network effect, right? Like it's like if only one person has a telephone, it's not very useful. But then when two people have it, now you can have a call, and once everyone has a phone, it's incredibly useful. It's a very powerful network effect. How are you going about and thinking about marketing this to people? Like let's say I did have a rental property and I've stumbled into you, but my neighbor who also has a rental property, uh, he doesn't know about you. How are you reaching that guy? Is it, obviously podcasts I think are a very useful way. We've got primarily Bitcoiners tuning into this sort of media, but are there other ways that you're trying to engage with them? Are you trying to engage with existing Airbnb renters, or what's sort of the marketing effort?
Yeah, so we're focusing exclusively on Bitcoiners at this stage. So we've had a couple of people that like by some way heard about us. They're not Bitcoiners. They want us to tell them how to what wallet they should use because they're interested. I mean, at this stage, we just don't have the time to orange pill people and teach them how Bitcoin works. We're looking to implement like some kind of educational part of the site in the future. But for now, we're focusing on people who are really into Bitcoin. So basically, someone who self-identifies as a Bitcoiner. So we're trying to reach those people. And yeah, I mean, podcast is a huge thing. I'm trying to go on as many as I can. And then obviously Twitter is huge, Nostr is huge. And then the other one the other two avenues that we're focusing on is Bitcoin only events, or conferences and like Bitcoin parties and stuff like that. And then also Bitcoin circular economies. We have an ambassador program where if you have a Bitcoin circular economy, and those are popping up all over the world now, especially in more rural areas. You can sign up to the ambassador program. If you get listings, you get a kickback from the income we receive from those listings, and I think that's got a lot of potential because that idea I think is really good. It's like a win-win-win-win for us, for the circular economy, for the and for the host. So, I mean, if I could just quickly explain. So, a huge problem for Bitcoin circular economies, especially in poorer and rural areas, is to get some Bitcoin into the system, into their town, because their currency is worth basically nothing. They can't get Bitcoin for it. So usually, so if you have a host that and someone comes and pays in Bitcoin to that house, then that house receives the Bitcoin directly from us, and he will probably spend that Bitcoin in that town. Um, um, uh, in the circular economy in that town. Then the person that comes to stay there, the guest, will probably also be a Bitcoiner, so he will also probably spend Bitcoin in that town, in the Bitcoin circular economy, and in the Bitcoin circular economy project gets a kickback from us, which they can use for marketing purposes or to build out their project or the circular economy in that area. Um, however they like. So I'm quite excited about that. I'm hoping that this ambassador program can really take off, and then that this can be something that drives our marketing forward.
I love that idea. The Bitcoin Way, we actually offer a Plan B residency program right now, focused in Panama, and more to come. But one of our founders, Tony, was telling me when we were together a couple months ago that there's one of these communities popping up in Panama, and it's like, people building houses, in this community, community gardens, like all of this stuff, trying to build out like these, amazing Bitcoin circular economies. And the cool thing about that is it seems like these are popping up in, um, not necessarily traditional tourist destinations, but like, like El Salvador, you've got beaches and surfing and things going on. Panama, the same sort of thing. Bitcoin jungle. So I imagine that could be a very lucrative opportunity for you, if you can tap into, because I suspect a lot of those people aren't living there full time, or at least, maybe they're staying there even 10 months out of the year. Well, they might have 2 months that they could rent it, inject some Bitcoin liquidity into that economy. And, then it spreads by word of mouth that there's this, awesome place you can go. And there are rental properties available. You can pay in Bitcoin only. And man, I can just imagine like 5 or 10 years from now, what this could be, that you like zoom in on some of these hotbed tourist destinations, and it's just AirBTC has, 50 or 100 properties in this little location, if if you're picking the right time of year. So that's
Yeah,
is that sort of the vision that you're seeing?
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm seeing. Yeah, so I think, the Bitcoin community is already large. I mean, I think the latest statistics that I saw is like there's over like 1 million addresses that holds more than 0.1 Bitcoin. So I mean, if you have your own address, that means it's probably not on an exchange. 1 million, that's already a lot of people across the world. So I mean, it's only going to grow from here. And any holiday destination, they want new people coming in. They're always looking for fresh tourists. And I think this could be like a really good way for any place to attract tourists that they wouldn't have had if they weren't on using Bitcoin or AirBTC. So I think I think the like almost Bitcoin only destinations or Bitcoin circular economy destinations I think is going to be a big thing in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I can tell you personally, like those are some places I want to go check out, right? And I think there are probably a lot of other Bitcoiners who share that sentiment. Like if I'm going to go somewhere on vacation, it'd be pretty fun to go meet some other Bitcoiners and see what they're doing there, and to spend some Bitcoin. It's just a cool thing, and I'm hopeful for you that we have this bull run here that we are anticipating. I think many of us are anticipating over the next year and a half or so, that point one Bitcoin that someone might have in a wallet it extends a lot further, and they might be able to utilize that
Yeah,
and
as
actually
Bitcoiners
do
get
something.
richer, they're going to travel more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. So, hey, you said that you've received some great feedback. I assume you mean from both those renting properties as well as the people who are staying at these places. Could you maybe share just a little bit about what that feedback has been, and maybe even tell the story of like I'm sure you remember like the first time someone made a connection on your site and you rented your first property. How did that go, and what was the experience that they had and that you felt when
yeah,
that
it
happened?
was awesome. So it was a guy from the US, and he rented a place in El Salvador at Bitcoin Beach, and he sent us a video of when he was arriving, And he said there's also me just paid on AirBTC with Bitcoin. Yeah, the next day I contacted the host. He said everything went well. The guy checked out, and I paid him in Lightning. And this is the best thing for me. I mean, as I said previously, the technology already exists. People are not using it yet. But the guest was from the US, and I'm sitting in South Africa, and he's booking in El Salvador. He paid me, and then I paid that guy. Everything was free, and within a couple of seconds on the Lightning Network. I mean, it's just the technology and the UX is there. So yeah, it was a great experience, and we were obviously had a drink that evening to celebrate our first booking.
Yeah, that is so cool. But the unfortunate thing is what you just said. Like you're sitting in South Africa, paying a guy in El Salvador for booking someone who paid him who paid directly through your site, coming from the U.S. I think I think a lot of people hear that and they're like, well, that's what I do with Airbnb. Is some company in California pays the guy whose house I rented, and like, what's the difference? I don't I don't think people appreciate the layers of complexity that exist in the financial our existing financial system, that money is being routed all over the place, settlement takes a long time, like it feels seamless, but under the hood it's an absolute mess.
Hmm.
And what you're talking about and what you're describing here is some guy in the US paid directly to you, and you paid out directly to the guy who rented out that house, and there were no banks, no middlemen, no waiting on settlement. It happened, and it's magic. And I think if more people understood really the insanity of what we take for granted on a daily basis in the traditional financial system, what you said would just, like, it would blow their minds. So I hope for anyone listening who's maybe newer to Bitcoin is like, don't let that be lost on you. The magic of what Handre and his team are leveraging in the power of this tool. So I don't know if you have anything you want to expand, but for me, that's just such a cool story that I think gets missed.
Exactly. I mean, my wife works in foreign exchange, and I know the amount of parties involved in international payments. It's insane. I mean, and the amount of regulatory and compliance and fees, and it just never stops. I mean, if you if you want to transfer money, so because my brother-in-law lives in Texas, if I want to transfer money from here to him, I mean, that process, it's insane. It'll take like 2 weeks for me to get the money. I mean, if both of us started without a bank account, it'll take longer than 2 weeks. But I mean, it goes through my bank, then it goes through an intermediary bank in South Africa, then it goes to the Reserve Bank in South Africa, then it goes to like some intermediary bank in Europe, then it goes into the SWIFT system from there to another intermediary bank in Europe, then it goes to some bank in New York. Then they have a partner bank somewhere, and then that bank transferred it to whatever bank he has. At the end of the day, there's like 12 to 14 parties involved in that payment. It's insane. And just remember, every single one of them, they take a cut, and it may not say explicitly the amount of that they took, but they will just change the interest rate the exchange rate to whatever the final amount is that he gets out. They always hide the fees by the exchange rate. You can never see what you're actually paying them. You just see, oh wait, the exchange rate was actually $20 for 1 rand, but I only got 20 rand for $1. Oh, but I only got 18. Where's the other 20? Where's that 10% gone? Um, you never see that. So yeah, I think normal people on the street, they don't realize like you said, how complicated the current system is.
Yeah, it's the inefficiency is wild, and that's why, I mean, just to your point, about sending money to someone in Texas from South Africa, it's like it's why Western Union, like, people are paying remittances back home, to family in a place that they've left, and they're paying huge percentages on top, and probably it's a semi-monopolistic industry, or at least just a handful of big companies that do most of that, and so they can probably get away with some price gouging. But it's also just much more expensive when you've got to pass through 3, 4, 5, 10 intermediaries along the way, and they're not acting as nonprofits. They're going to take a cut of something. So it's wildly inefficient. And I think this is what's so cool about you choosing to build this on Bitcoin only and to completely cut that out. And I understand that that exposes you to the risk of far fewer people being able to, it's like, hey, well, I need, fiat income, cash flow, whatever. But it's a bold move you guys are making. I think it's incredibly cool. So another thing I wanted to ask you about was, Bitcoiners are very privacy oriented by nature. And my sense is if I'm using Airbnb or any, sort of lodging hotel system, I mean, they have tons of information about me. And I know that there's like there's sort of a balancing act I suspect you have to strike. Like you, I imagine, are much more privacy oriented than anyone working at Airbnb, but you probably want to make sure that there's some sort of a system for reviews or vetting the guests, or vetting the making sure that people are safe. How do you think about sort of striking that balance well?
That is a huge issue for us. It's something that I think about daily, and at this stage, we are fortunately we are small enough to we're handling everything on a case to case basis. We have already approved 2 users through Noster already, so um, they are active users. They have listings on our site. We don't know their names. Well, we we know their first names from their email, but we don't have their IDs and stuff like that. Which I think there's huge potential in that. Like the verification process is through Noster. I think I think that's the future. That being said, we try and do KYC. We're approaching it from a totally different viewpoint as traditional finance. They have KYC and ILM measures that the goal is to control and to tax you, basically. That's the reason why they are doing it. Those measures are created and set up for that reason. It's not to stop bad actors or drug trafficking or stuff like that, as they say, because it doesn't work for that. They're still financing wars, and drug lords are still using HSBC and JP Morgan and whatever. So we're approaching our KYC practices purely to stop bad actors from using our site. So that's our main and only goal with our KYC, and we are trying to do. We want to know as little as possible from private information that we can, and still know you're not a bad actor. That's basically what we're trying to accomplish, and I think Noster is going to play a huge role, especially on our side in the future with that. But for now, we only KYC you after you've booked. So if you've booked and you've paid, then then the host can decide what he wants from the guest before he's going to stay there. So if it's the host's private property, if he wants to know you, or if he wants to see your ID, then we're going to respect that. So at this stage, we're handling it on a case by case basis like that, and we don't keep any documentation.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're allowing the free market to proliferate. If someone wants KYC information and someone's willing to give that up in order to stay at a particular place, then so be it. It's it's effectively a private contract that you're just sort of intermediating.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if people don't, then they're free to do that. I think this is the biggest problem with government in general, is that they see something that isn't perfect and they think that it will be perfect if they just pass the right legislation. But the reality is it's illegal to kill someone and people still kill each other. And it's illegal to drive too fast and people still drive too fast. And, like trying to perfect this very rarely leads to materially better outcomes. And so I think allowing the free market to operate, let the people who are making this agreement between one another, for rental, let them decide, what level of diligence they want to do or not. And if the deal falls through, then it falls through. I mean, not every contract has to be executed. So I love that. And I think I can imagine you guys only the longer you're in this, the more fine tuned that process will become, and hopefully for you all is a smaller team, less manual over time, and you can build out some tools to let people make those determinations.
Yeah, I mean, so from the listing side, so the hosts, from their side, it's fairly straightforward. So I mean, 99% of the people of our listings, they also list on other sites already. So they're like either on Airbnb or Verbo or whatever. There's like every country has 2 or 3 of their own sites like that as well. And we do calendar integration with those listings because that's necessary not to stop double bookings from happening. So there's this calendar integration software, and if someone integrates their calendar with Airbnb or Verbo or whatever other website, that means that that is their listing. So that is a approval for us that that listing on that site is this person that's in contact with me's listing. So that is one way that we're doing it from our side. From a user perspective, like I mentioned, it depends on a guest perspective. It depends on the host, but also as soon as someone has booked once and there hasn't been any problems, you're kind of like building that profile of that user. Same way you're building your Nostr profile, basically. You're building trust and our confidence in you slowly as you go. Um, and I think, in my mind, that that's the way to do it. That's the way to go forward.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned earlier near the beginning, you said that you've got some hotels, resorts, places like that that are interested. If you were to just pull out a crystal ball, do you think over the next 5 years, do you think you're going to be partnering more with like institutions who own, a hotel or a resort, or do you anticipate like more organic growth through individuals who just have a rental house or two that you're going to work with?
I mean, that's a really hard question, but I mean, just my general feel at this stage, I would say, like in 5 years, if I have to predict that, I would say like 30% hotels and stuff, and 70% um, general population, small
Yeah.
small guys. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be my suspicion, just based on it sounds like your marketing engine is predominantly toward folks like me who are listening to a Bitcoin podcast or going to an event or anything like that. And by the way, do you do conferences or anything like that yet, or has it
Yeah.
been?
So um, Jake, my partner from the US, he's going to be attending the Adopting Bitcoin conference in El Salvador later. What's it, in November?
Yeah.
And he's a speaker there, and we're also on their preferred accommodation partners list. So go check that out. And then I'm going to be attending the Adopting Bitcoin conference in Cape Town in January. We're also still in the process of getting enough listings to become a accommodation partner with them. And then yes, from next year onwards, we're gonna be looking at attending some conferences.
Okay, very cool. I hope I get to bump into you guys at some of them. So I've got one more question for you that I ask everyone at the end of the show, but I want to, before I get there, is there anything I haven't asked you about the business, what you're working on? And I'll let you give a handoff where people can find you at the end, but anything that I haven't asked you about specifically that you're excited about, looking forward to with the business that you'd want to share?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that, I think a lot of Bitcoiners know this intuitively, but one of the great cool things is just working with other Bitcoiners. I mean, the community, the people in this community is it's just awesome. I mean, the general line of personalities that you get. I mean, the traits that the people have, like intelligence, honesty, hardworking people. It's really and also the just the amount of interest and excitement in the community. I mean, if you compare to the general population who's basically semi-depressed, being stolen from every single day and with no hope, the Bitcoiners are just like optimistic and hardworking, and it's been really cool to work with these with Bitcoiners in general. It's I highly recommend it, and I think that's going to be a huge thing for us moving forward with the with Bitcoin is, less complaints, more honesty, people pitching up at the right time and not lying about their listings, or they're destroying people's property. I think that just the general outlook of Bitcoin is regarding that. I think it's going to be like almost zero bad behavior on our platform.
I couldn't possibly reaffirm that point more. Yeah, I agree. I can tell you, I've been fortunate in my fiat career previously. I got to work with some great people, not a lot of complaints. But it's a very different experience working with, and we've got a relatively small team as well, working with a handful of people that you like could just trust with your life. If they told me they needed something, I'd be there for them, and I know they do the same. So you're working with some of the best and brightest, I think. So,
Yeah.
so Andre, last question for you. This is again one I ask everyone. So, what is an unpopular opinion that you hold, and you get bonus points if you offend some Bitcoiners with this opinion?
Well, I I think that I don't think Bitcoin's volatility is going to go down anytime soon. I'm not sure how unpopular that is, but if you want massive gains, you're going to have to take massive volatility. I think those two goes hand in hand, and I think we're going to see that in the future. I think we're going to still see large drop downs, percentage-wise, maybe even the same as we've seen before. And I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. And I think if you're a Bitcoiner, you're going to have to still. I think a lot of Bitcoiners are hoping that when we reach like 500k, it's going to be smooth sailing. It's going to steadily climb to 10 million in incremental parts. But I think we're going to see like in 10 years, we're going to see like $1 million candles up and down.
Yeah, yeah. So you think for at least what would you say, like a cycle or two more, we're gonna continue
it,
to see that,
well, I
or
think
forever?
um, I mean, hopefully not forever. I think when Bitcoin starts to be used as a unit of account, that could stop
Mm,
or get
okay.
better. But as long as we're denominating Bitcoin in fiat currencies, I think the volatility is going to stay relatively high.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a reasonable base case. But yeah, I think 50% of people that's gonna be unpopular with, and 50% of people will agree. I
Yeah.
was actually listening to a podcast with Preston Pish had Joe Carlasari on recently with a couple of other guys, and they were sort of talking about the volatility is going to continue. They're going to be prepared for drawdowns, and Joe thinks that maybe this is the cycle where we hit 500k or whatever, and he's like, why does there's it's not a law of the universe that it has to continue to drop. And if Wall Street money's in it, they're not looking at the price, they just need an allocation to it or whatever. But I'd love for that to be the case. I don't think about the price. I think about it as an exchange rate, more than like the price of Bitcoin, because
Hmm.
a Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, right? But I'll be interested to see if he's right. I hope he is. I think I probably fall more with you, that I think we've got adoption is still relatively low on a global basis. That I think we've got some runway before we start seeing unit of account conversations, decreased volatility, and so forth.
Yeah. I mean, also, I mean, it's a free market, so anyone from around the world can start buying Bitcoin from someone else. And I think, humans just when the price goes up, they get euphoric, and then when it starts dropping, they sell, and they
Yeah, the
get scared.
panic.
So they panic and they get scared. So I mean, I think that's underrated reason, underexplored reason for Bitcoin's volatility as well, because it's just human nature, and um, I, I, that's not going to stop.
Yeah, it's not gonna. It's not. It's definitely in my mind not going to stop until people understand fundamentally what makes Bitcoin unique. Because right now, I think too many people just view it as like an asset class. Oh, I want to have some Bitcoin exposure. They
Yeah.
don't view it as, this is just money that I hold and I preserve for the long term,
It,
generational wealth. Like, I think there are a lot of people who still need to even uncover what Bitcoin is before we could possibly get there.
yeah. They see it as a short to medium term trading tool to make money off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately a lot of people are going to lose their shirts over those sorts of misperceptions of Bitcoin. Well,
definitely.
Andre, hey man, this has been so fun. I absolutely love what you guys are doing. So cool. I truly appreciate your principled approach, because I think a lot of Bitcoin companies who have been around a lot longer than you could take a lesson. There are plenty of people out there who still aren't even accepting Bitcoin for their supposed Bitcoin companies, and I think that's a big miss, and it sends the wrong signal to people, that hey, the best money ever, but no, don't give us that. Give us your dollars. Uh, so I love what you're doing. Why don't you tell people where they can find you online, where they can find AirBTC, and any other handoff you want to give?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Michael. I So the website is airbtc.online, and we have a active Twitter handle as well. It's also airbtc online, at airbtc online, and then I'm quite active on Twitter myself. It's Handre, like my name, Handre, and then a V, or you can just type in Handre van Heerden. I think I'm the only one on Twitter. So yeah, thanks for having me, and that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andre. For everyone listening, go check him out. I love this business, and I hope you guys succeed beyond your wildest expectations.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael.
And cheers, man.
Cheers.
And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I loved having Handre on the podcast. Make sure you check out AirBTC and what they're working on. If you've got a rental property or primary residence, you'd like to earn some Bitcoin renting out in the short term, they are an awesome option. And again, love their principled approach to all of this. And of course, if you need help with Bitcoin self-custody, online privacy, setting up a privacy phone, a Plan B residency to citizenship option, check out the Bitcoin Way. You can go to thebitcoinway.com/podcast to schedule a free 30-minute consult with a member of our team, and we will talk you through whatever it is that you're interested in. And of course, you can follow us on X at @thebitcoinway_. You can follow me there as well at @theothermjordan. And of course, love for you to like, subscribe, share this show with anyone. We will be back with more next week. Look forward to seeing you then.